What's up, everybody?
What's up, man?
To the X Podcast, episode 4. How are you feeling about this, Russ?
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah, these weeks have been fun.
Yeah,
and today, what we're going to dive into in such a calm week, such a calm season, I think is going to be a whole lot of fun.
There's really nothing happening in the world.
Calm waters.
Calm waters. I shaved my face because I wanted to be professional for this conversation. So,
baby face.
If you were wondering what I looked like in the 11th grade, here I am. But welcome, everybody, wherever you're watching from, wherever you're listening to us, whatever platform. We're so excited to have you, and building quite a little family here on this podcast.
We have. It's been fun.
I heard people watching at
in the
work,
feedback email,
lunchtime, people listening when they get their teeth brushed and all that sort of stuff. So. Super exciting. If you could, like always, we'd love to hear your feedback about what we talk about and any ideas. We've had some people email in and contact us at podcast@thex.church. That's our email.
We want to know what you would like us to wrestle with. So if you have a particular thought, if you disagree with something that we've already said, hey, we love that.
We'd love
to not just, I think
or if anything's helped, last week we got really vulnerable.
Yes.
We got really vulnerable. I know we talked. Okay,
I did too.
Yeah, truth moment. Tim here, he cried on a rock later that week and let us know. But we really did. We talked about it afterwards. We're like, we feel good. This was good for us, if nobody else.
It is a great way for us to process. I feel like this is my counseling moment for every week with my two counselors.
We're so glad you're tuning in with us wherever you are, and we're going to actually be creating some social media pages with this podcast. So
come on,
by the end of this week. So stay tuned. We would love your follow. We would love you to comment and share on things that we share, YouTube, Instagram, those types of things. And we think it's going to be awesome. So just want to keep building this little family, and our hope is that, you know, full disclosure, we pastor at a church. And so, but our hope is that this would be a safe place for anybody that you know to join us and just hear just some of the things we're thinking about and some of the things we're processing about society and culture and all things universe.
We intend, let me say this, we intend for these conversations to not necessarily be traditional things that maybe you'd hear at church, but what does it look like for us as citizens of the United States and people in this culture to think and to wrestle with things that anybody and everybody's thinking about, even if they are a person of faith or not a person of faith. And obviously, we do it through a lens. Our faith informs how we live and how we see the world. But I think we want to inspire critical thinking. We want to inspire people to think. I feel like sometimes we don't have enough of that, at least in the circle of our church world circle, is that sometimes we don't just have critical thinking on culture, on society, subjects, things that we want to talk about what the world's talking about. We want to talk about what our culture is wrestling with in that moment.
Yeah, and I will say one thing, it's not our passion that we would replicate exactly what any of us think, and we all disagree at this table. But one thing I think we could just say unashamedly is we'd love to replicate the way we dialogue and the tone at which we talk.
Yeah.
We were talking about earlier, I had a conversation, I've had several conversations lately about things going on politically, and I realize how spoiled I am by this.
Yeah.
Because you start going into certain topics with people and just defenses come up, emotions run high. And I'm just so thankful that, if anything, humbly, maybe this can be a template for people. I've actually referenced back to this podcast. I don't know, is that narcissistic? Of, hey, look back to the podcast. Right. We should be able to have conversations about real things and still respect each other and just dialogue, learn from each other. And
we disagree on a lot of things politically. Not a ton, but we do. We definitely vary on the political spectrum when it comes to policies and certain
things. Is it fair to say
that
at this table we have a conservative, a liberal, and a libertarian? Is that too dangerous?
which one?
Now I'm making you nervous.
What do you mean in the category of? I don't know. But I think what's different is that I don't like to be categorized because I want to think a little bit differently, and I feel like we just hijacked this whole conversation. This is great. I feel like that we have landed in two sides in two boxes, and it's basically you fit in one. You have to fit in one of those boxes when it comes time to vote. But I feel like sometimes we also just think party lines sometimes, and I don't like to. I kind of reject that. There's things I like about different parties, and there's things I like about different groups of people and the way they see the world. But I just feel like I have a different perspective. We were talking about this earlier, where I might know what I believe in the world I want to create, like the world I would love to see, like the America I would like to see. But even if I disagree politically, I actually, and it seems like today, I don't know, people are so passionate, it seems like they can't even see across the aisle. We see this in politicians in Washington, and it seems like in my conversations with people on different sides, I can see where a different side politically comes from. And I feel like I see what a lot of times their motives are. And I think, you know, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I feel like, you know, people do want to make a better country. I think politicians in general, I think that's why they get into it. They want to make a better country, and they believe in something. They're very passionate about their ideals and things they have. And I think what the whole political season we just got out of really has highlighted is that the actual process is really disgusting to me. Like the actual process of how you beat your candidate is by pushing them further to an extreme in everybody's mind, by you know, inflating comments and things that they've said to the point where it drives fear into people's hearts. And that's what I've seen in this process. I don't like it. I feel like we make the other person, we demonize them. Even as humans, we demonize these people in our passion for wanting to be elected or whatever it looks like. And I'm just longing for a day where it's can we just get people that we want to elect, regardless of party or whatever, that have ideals that are really going to be good for all and make our country better.
So you're a libertarian.
There we go.
I think that you know, we were talking yesterday. We always have 2 or 3 conversations leading up to this conversation to see what we actually want to talk about, what we want to share. Some of it we're like, we can't share this.
There's stuff we're too afraid
comes
to talk
out anyway,
about.
So that's perfect.
But
one of the things I thought was interesting, we were like, what are the good trends that we could pull from this election cycle? And you're like, not many. Just kidding. But here we are in history, in this time and space where we have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have claimed victory, and they have won the popular vote and the Electoral College vote. How do I stay in the center on this? The media has
use a
projected,
specific word there.
But the media has projected that they will be the president-elect and vice president-elect. And what's weird about it is we have a current president who is not only contesting it legally, but also claiming voter fraud. And honestly, none of us know where this is going to end up. And some of us are super excited. Some of us are super excited about the next 4 years, and some of us are disappointed, and some of us are just ready for one party to concede, and some of us are feeling the anxiety of, wait a second, this could go really south really quick.
Let me just say to this, because I thought we weren't going to get into this conversation, but hey, here we are. Mics are on. We're going live.
So do you think there's voter fraud?
So I don't know if there's voter fraud. I have heard.
I've heard 6 times.
I'm just kidding.
I'm joking.
You didn't vote. I've heard more scenarios and comments from a variety of sources of all kinds of, you know, there is voter fraud, from Sharpie markers to 138,000 ballots coming in, every single one of them, Biden and mail, all this different stuff. I know that I read in a news article that the courts have thrown out several of the lawsuits already. I don't know they've addressed them all. My only thought on this, and I mentioned this to you, I think the other day, a couple days ago, was I said, I sure hope there isn't. I would imagine there's always been a little bit of fraud, and this would not be new.
That's comforting.
I would imagine. That's not comforting, but I would imagine it, but to think if there is some type of, from the top down plan that is systemic to create this, that I don't know that I go there. And a lot of people, conspiracy theorists or people on the conservative side, would go, oh my gosh, it's there. I don't know if there is. All I know is this. I pray there isn't.
Right.
I don't even know if I want to know, because I feel like it does a lot to me when I think about democracy. I feel like everything we've ever known and everything that matters, it just with our democracy is just in shambles if that happens. And I know that makes it a little extreme. So I don't go there. I don't necessarily think that. I reserve my judgment.
Man, are we about to go there? I want to go there. No.
You're really passionate about this.
Listen,
Speaking of passionate,
so we were talking about what are the good things that have come from this election, even though we find ourselves in a little bit of a contentious place. And what is true is that voter turnout was higher than it's ever been. Both of these candidates have gotten more votes than any candidate has ever received in the past. And I feel like turnout and participation can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a great thing for our country.
I do.
And at the same time, people are more passionate now than they've ever been. You look at every generation.
Do you think they're more passionate now than ever?
You know what? I have a
or is
limited
it
scope.
Well, I'm just saying, or is it that we hear everybody's passion today that we didn't in previous decades and whatever?
Yeah, but I think the vote speaks to something.
Yeah, I think that there's more participation.
more
I was
people in our
listening
country
to
now
like I said, I'm a super nerd. I'm a super nerd when it comes to politics, and specifically presidential politics. And I was watching a collection of presidents, and they used to go on these talk shows like with Johnny Carson. So I don't know why I spend my time on YouTube watching that, but I do. And Reagan was on.
It's the algorithms.
Yeah, Reagan was on Johnny Carson. And he was about to run for president, and one of the main issues of that time, I don't even know what year it was, but there was only 37% voter turnout in the previous federal election.
Wow.
And to think, wow, that's not even a part of the conversation right now. So that's a good thing. But what it does indicate, I think, is the level of passion that people have towards this. So why don't we speak just a little bit? Let's have a conversation about passion. Is all passion good? And I kind of want to know where you guys draw from when it comes to being passionate about things. So, Russ, why don't you kick us off?
Wow.
Where do I draw from? Some thoughts on passion.
For me personally.
Yeah.
So for me personally, one of the things that I think is probably important to note is that I am by default, by my personality, a very, very passionate person for all the good and the bad that entails. I've always been that way. We were having a private conversation yesterday about childhood, and I cannot wait to hear yours. But when I was a kid, I mean, from the moment I can first remember, I was passionately in some kind of hobby. I got into outer space and astronomy for a while and would write on my own essays about the solar system and the galaxies and the planets. I got obsessed with dinosaurs. Stop laughing at me.
Wait. You wrote essays?
Essays on my own time. I wrote essays on dinosaurs. Utah raptor. He's the lesser-known velociraptor's cousin, and it makes me angry. He doesn't get enough airtime, but it's okay. We'll move on. But I was obsessed with dinosaurs. I watched Jurassic Park. I was obsessed with words. We were talking. This could be for another time. But in case you didn't think I was anything important, I got on the news in second grade for writing my own thesaurus. So, Mom,
that's a good story.
Be proud. So, just in case. But anyways,
Mom listening right now?
Yeah, so she is. But I mean, she would know that. But anyways, I got obsessed with words. I got obsessed with wrestling. I played baseball for 12 years and got obsessed. I mean, collected cards like a fiend. When I got into martial arts, I went all out, ended up dabbling in Taoism and Zen Buddhism for a while. For an entire summer in middle school years, I ate the diet of Bruce Lee, of short grain brown rice, water, and everything.
I don't even
so
know
I
you.
was, some of you are like, who is this weirdo? I was a weird kid. Say all that to say, and I could go on. I talk about the wrestling organization I created.
Like that.
But I was so passionate about everything, and I've always been passionate. So I don't know where to cap off an intro on my view of passion other than as an innate personality trait, I have always burned with a really high level of passion. And I believe that passion is a great thing that can be distorted into a horrible thing, depending on what motivates your passion, what you're passionate about, and how you express that passion.
Would you say that, so here's something interesting. I never really, I don't have a childhood like that, Dear Lord.
Was that to an abbreviated list?
No, that was more than enough. I played sports and video games, but
we want to talk about Mortal Kombat codes.
Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
But I think one of the things is I hear you talking about your weirdness and how passionate you were about the Velociraptors.
They're amazing.
Okay, it's just weird. I do identify with part of it. One of the things that I've recognized in my own personality is that I have a tendency to, I feel like I can become addicted to something pretty easily where I go all in.
Yep.
So I don't know if this is the same thing. I don't, again, I didn't write my own essays without a teacher making me, but I do think that there were times like I was, I'd be obsessed with video games when I was probably like 10, 12 years old. I don't remember, but I don't remember what system I had. I remember one point when I had a Nintendo. I think it was the original Nintendo with Mario Brothers, and I got it early. I remember I had this 13-inch black and white TV, so some of you wouldn't even know what that is. I feel really old. I was just saying that. Now I just realized that. My gosh, I'm old. And I had it in my room, and I remember like one Saturday I spent 8 hours playing it. 8 hours. So much so that I had an indent in my thumb of the controller.
Yep.
I played it. So you have too.
No.
And, you just understand. So, like, I think one of the things I've seen in my personality throughout the years was that if there was something I became passionate about, I would get obsessed.
Yeah.
I think, again, let's relate that to the larger context right now. It feels like in the season we've been in through this whole year and even the election process, it seems like everybody has, it's like everybody's passion has risen to the surface more than what I think we've seen on a normal. And yeah, I don't know, to a point of addiction or whatever, but, and I'm saying, but just passionate for their policies or political candidates or their side, and videos being thrown left and right at each other across, it's battle lines that are drawn. And so I do think that passion can be great when steered with a purpose, when steered in the right direction. Yeah. I feel like
you gotta aim the rocket.
Yeah, and I feel like passion can also be the thing that actually can take people into really dark places. I think it can take people into addictions. It can take people into places like that. And so, I think that's the real question is, how do you know if your passion is something that's pointed in the right direction? Yeah. How do you know you're passionate about the right things? Like here in Columbus, let's be honest, and I struggle with this sometimes, not to the extent that I see a lot of people, but like college football, Ohio State football, people are passionate about. I've said this before. It's like it is the largest church in Central Ohio. I mean, they meet on Saturday instead of Sunday. But if you ever go there's 100,000+ people when we used to meet. That are all worshiping. I mean, they are celebrating. These are the same people. This is what drives me crazy.
That's right.
This is my pastor hat. I'm gonna put. Here's what always drives me crazy, and I'm not trying to, tell anybody how to worship, but it's amazing how they can be so expressive at a football game and then show up at church and then stand there and act like they're miserable. And it seems like they're miserable.
Well, what we don't
So I
like
probably-
is, one way or the other, our passions tell on us.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever you're passionate about leaks.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, because I think you have a couple different types of people. I think all three of us at this table are super passionate. Like, we're super passionate people. And I think you have to realize your relationship with passion. Like, personally, how do I relate to passion? Because my wife she's passionate about about a lot less things than I am.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's personality type. I don't know if it's Enneagram. I don't know what it is, but I'm passionate about everything. I have to become unpassionate about certain things because of how much passion.
What are you passionate about?
Runs
You didn't
through
say.
my veins. I'm passionate about. I think when I was younger, I was a sports guy. I played baseball, and I became obsessed, became passionate about baseball. And those things you get into when you're younger, and you think they're your world. And so that was my world, was to do whatever I can, and stop. Don't go there.
Okay.
But that was my world, and that's what I threw myself into. I was passionate about all sorts of different things. I laugh at your video game analogy because you must not have any kids that play video games now, because 8 hours is a short period of time to play video games.
My girls don't play video games.
Their
Their boyfriends all play
Call
video
of
games.
Duty.
Their boyfriends
Yeah.
all played.
If you spend 20 hours playing that thing and just not come out of the room the entire day. I was passionate about video games, but I'm passionate about politics. I'm passionate about.
You are. We saw that on election night.
I am. I'm very passionate. I'm passionate about really just everything. Home improvement. I'm passionate about learning. I'm passionate about. So my problem is that I'm too passionate about too many things, and I think what you realize is that if you're like me, then too many passions with no purpose behind them will lead to frustration, and will lead to ultimately, even if it's not your own destruction, because you can't possibly be passionate about everything, it will lead to other people's destruction.
Yeah.
Because if I'm passionate about something that I'm not informed about, then what I'm going to do is lie or hurt people because my passion is misplaced. And I think in politics right now, I think it's great that so many people are passionate, but I think that you can almost say that there is a whole contingency of people that are passionate because they've been told that they need to be.
Sure.
And in order to participate, you have to be passionate.
Yeah.
And I think that that's actually hurting people.
Yeah, I think so too. There's a verse in the Bible that I love where this guy named Paul comes across a group of people who are really passionate about some political, theological things going on. And he makes this statement I think is interesting. He said, this people, here's how we describe them. They have a zeal, but not in accordance with knowledge.
Right.
It's like what you said, zeal without knowledge is dangerous. And zeal just because other people tell you to is really dangerous. And I think maybe a starting place for grading the level of health of your passion is, where does it come from? Passion should be cultivated, not spoon-fed.
Right.
So if you're just really, really passionate and angry because you've surrounded yourself with so many people that keep telling you should be angry and keep reinforcing while you're angry and keep pushing that in, but there's not been a journey for you to cultivate why you're angry, because there are good things to be angry at.
Yeah.
There are things worth being angry at in a righteous, I'm going to change the world, help people kind of way.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I submit that to you guys.
Well,
what does it look like? Well, what's the starting place to say, is my passion spoon-fed or cultivated?
I think one of the challenges right now in our culture that I've never known it to be harder to figure this out is that I think a lot of people's passion, whether it's for the political side or for anything else, like, how do we know that we're even getting appropriate information? I mean, I think that's one of the things I find that's really difficult, because as we've talked before about the algorithms and different things like that, YouTube's going to make sure that you see videos. Facebook's going to make sure that you see posts of things they think you want to see, because they want to keep you glued to it. So it's even kind of, I feel like a lot of things that incited passions in this season have possibly even come from, you just one video after another video after another video. And it's like, I try to consider myself, I want to be balanced in sources, and just kind of to an extent I want to, and I have seen, it's funny, you see videos that use same statistical data to prove one thing, and then somebody else uses it to prove something else, to prove a point.
Well, what's tough is the more passionate you get about something, the less emotionally open you're going to be able to hear
right.
even from a mental standpoint, anything that conflicts with that. So it's like, I think it was one of the balances of maturity and health is, how can I be passionate about the right things, but have my passion not temper off the open-mindedness?
What are the right things?
Okay.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what are the right things that we think. Again, I think everybody's going to be a little bit different, but are there some things that we could at least identify and say, I think these things in this year, in this season, would be things that would be good to be passionate about. Here's things that could be dangerous. No, I mean, I don't want to tell anybody what their passion is, and they can be passionate about what they want to be.
I think just from a conceptual standpoint, without getting super specific yet, I think a good question to ask when you look at the motivation of your passions, no matter how noble the thing is. I mean, even just politically right now, whether you're on the right or left, I think both sides use religious, especially people in the church, use religious soapboxes when really the motivation is a spirit of fear. That I'm afraid that the country is not going to look like me.
Yeah.
So I think three great things to tap into, that is one of these three things, is the motivation of what I'm most passionate about at this cause. Is it pride? Is it fear? Or is it love? And even if the cause is loving, if my motivation for it is not loving, I can do the good thing, but from the wrong motive, and at the end of the day, it's going to destroy me and destroy other people.
You know, I think I like the question, and I think we have to realize, I think there's this subliminal thing happening in society that every generation is having to deal with the rise of information and social media. And now that we're having to sort through information and the truth is somewhere in the middle of all of the information we're getting, I think that we have to realize that there are more people pulling for our passion now than ever.
Yeah.
And there's more sources, there's more powers in the world that are trying to get our passion.
Yeah.
And so we were talking yesterday about the difference between maybe your childhood and your, when you were a teenager and the current generation that's coming up, that right now, if you're in high school, and maybe you have a high schooler at home, or you are a high schooler, or you've seen this, that you have to decide so early on. Yeah. The pressure is, what are you passionate about? And I mean, the decisions that people are trying to get you to make, you have to, you can't be a sophomore in high school and not have the pressure is you better make a decision. And if you don't decide my way, then I hate you.
Right.
Yeah.
I
think that's awful, because I feel like when I was in school, I didn't think at all about the big issues that are talked about today. And I feel like in a way it's kind of robbing our kids of their childhood a little bit. And I think you see a lot of them involved in it early, which is great. But I also see that a lot of people, I think they don't have any kind of real background or knowledge or basis for that passion. And what you see is it's almost like a recruiting of people to a passionate idea.
Yeah, groupthink.
It's groupthink.
Identity politics.
Absolutely. There's pressure with that, especially in our schools. There's massive pressure for groupthink. And so it's immediately forcing people, young people that haven't really had enough life experience, and I don't say that to be demeaning, they just haven't. They haven't had a ton of life experience in the world. They haven't had time to develop understanding even through education or school or just even life, you know what I mean? And yet they're being forced to, okay, who would you vote for? They do that in school. And I think we may have done that once or twice, but it didn't create fights and debates, and it was over human rights. And those are important things, and it's kind of cool. I mean, one thing I think that is different now that I feel like from when I was a kid, I'm just thinking about my circle. So maybe someone else that was different. Like I was like, I wanted to play sports, and I wanted to date a girl, and I wanted to play a video game. You can't do all those. That doesn't work. That's not great. But, it's like that was like all I cared about for the most part when I was in high school. Now it's like passionate about the environment and passionate about what's going on around the world, what's going on over in Tokyo, what's going like the genocide happening, and you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
I feel my passion rising up. Listen, I gotta say something.
Okay.
Because, and I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm gonna say it. So I've done a lot of work with youth. You have high schoolers, and the things that we're trying to make them decide, and trying to politicize with teenagers, it's absolutely disgusting. Yeah, I don't like it. And I probably think I'm getting goosebumps right now. One of my biggest passions in life, I think, is protecting the freedom of young people to discover life and even God and spirituality on their own. And right now, I mean, you're having presidential administrations, not just this one, but the past one, that are trying to form what high schoolers, middle schoolers think. I know I've had students that have reached out to me as a youth pastor, reach out all upset because, like, literally they're having to decide whether or not they want to be a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
Wow.
And whatever you think about anything like that, there is a innocence and a sanctity to being a child
Yeah.
that we need to protect.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring this up is not because I'm trying to make a statement, but more so that misplaced passion puts pressure on people that could be potentially destructive.
Yeah.
And passion, it's super important, I think. I think that the misconception is it's good enough to be passionate. Like, I should just be passionate.
Right.
I should just be passionate about my job. I should just be passionate about wealth. I should just be passionate about being a Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative or whatever. And it's not enough. Being passionate is not enough. It's not enough. Like right now, I'm feeling passion sometimes can invoke a feeling in your body. Is that when you become passionate about something, the heat rises up in you, right? There's a physical response, not just a psychological response. And it's not enough to act on a physical,
Right.
instinct of passion. That if you are not doing the work to create your own worldview, to go, why am I passionate about that? Is it just
Right.
because it comes from a place in me? Like,
Right.
am I passionate about, this is a question we all have to ask ourselves. Am I passionate about young people because I feel like my freedom to discover things on my own was taken from me because of political whatever? Or, I mean, I have to ask myself that hard question. And we all should be asking ourselves the question, why am I so passionate about this? And does it come from a place of hurt or fear, like you said, or pride or ego? Or identity politics, or where does your passion come from? Because I will also say that I should not go here, but I'm going to.
Uh-oh.
There's this whole thing right now with identity politics, okay? And that people are much more concerned with being a Democrat or a Republican. Is that I'm sure there's a lot of us that are somewhere in the middle and would vote for one party or the other. I would hope that you feel that way and that you're open to it. Because if you are married to a party, what I hope you know is that party policy perspectives, they change over time. There's a spectrum politically. For example, if you're a Republican right now, the Republican Party is calling for bigger and more stimulus, whether you think that's right or wrong. Well, in 2008, when George Bush built out auto company, that was a sin, for George Bush to do the stimulus. So what I'm saying is that whether you just want to be a Republican your entire life or Democrat your entire life, there's things on the Democrat side that have changed. They on social issues have changed over 20 years. This is the problem that many people have had with Joe Biden is because he's been in politics for so long that his stance on things have changed just because he's been in it for so long. And if you are only passionate about a party, just know this, your party will change and it might leave you. And you have to be open to that.
Yeah. All right. That's well
Sorry,
said.
I gotta calm down.
Okay. You're pretty excited about this. Can I tell you about a passion I had when I was
well,
17 years old?
I think in a lot of different
Sorry.
ways, and I know we've hit a lot of topics in these last few episodes. We're gonna continue hit a lot of topics, but I just think it is so important. I'm gonna bring up that word we've overused is to get rid of the echo chamber because you will not advance the way you think. Like you said, policies change. And what's interesting, this is another side topic for another episode, is people crucified Joe Biden over changing his stances.
Right.
I used to hear this word flip-flop. Oh, this person flip-flops. They flip-flop. And somebody should be consistent in their core convictions. But if somebody evolves and grows in time, why is that a bad thing?
Right.
For whoever it is, Republican or Democrat. And like you said, to be open-minded, and I'm passionate like you are because I had a conversation even just this morning in family settings and in friend settings of there's no way that I can move forward in my knowledge, even if I don't change what I'm passionate about, there's no way I can move forward in my knowledge of it or in the way I approach somebody else if I'm not able to step into their shoes. And so I think one of the things that probably is really important to be said, that especially if I'm going to be effective in promoting the thing I'm passionate about, is that no matter how passionate I get, whether it's in politics as a Republican or Democrat, or it's in spirituality, or whatever it's in, is that I don't untether myself ever completely to dissenting voices around me.
Right.
Because then I will not understand how they think. I will be cocooned and my mindset will atrophy. And I will just become decayed in my thinking, and I will become outdated in my thinking, and I won't be able to relate to people. I'll just say this. This is, I tend to have a really hard time resonating with anyone when in the first few seconds of conversation, whether it's the right or the left, they use enough cliches to tip off what echo chamber they have quagmired themselves into. If it's, all those racist Republicans
Right.
or all those socialist Democrats,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I can tell that we're not going to push very far into this.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
probably took us off topic.
No, I like
but
No, I think one of the things that I've seen that I think has been hard on the backside of this election, I know it's not certified and done yet, and who knows what will happen, but has been people, I think people have been so passionate for one side or the other that I think, a lot of them are not even, it's turned from I'm passionate for this hopeful outcome to where if it doesn't happen, I've heard this from a lot of people, I would say on the right side, conservative side, just because of the election results, that there is a sense of fear. There is a sense of anxiety, and I think some of that is, I'm going to say, some of that's fed by the passions that we have for it. And I think when you're all in on something, and I don't think it's bad to be all in on stuff, but I think we just have to understand and kind of, I think sometimes we got to pull ourselves back just a little bit. All of us. I have that tendency that no matter what it is, if I throw myself into it, it's the only thing I see.
Yeah.
And I can be addicted really easily in a hobby or anything else. And, sometimes it's good to be able to pull yourself back from something just for a minute to get a little bit of perspective in life and go, okay, that's a passion right here, over here. That's not my world. Because I feel like people are lost right now in this really, really small world that they're either our world is ending or our world's just starting.
Well,
and
and
it's that's kind of dramatic.
Yeah.
Can we just, it's 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't think America's going to crumble in 4 years. Because if you think that, I don't think the 4 years that America is going to be saved and be changed into something else in 4 years either.
Well, I think that here's maybe a question that might be good for us to walk through is what are you going to do with your passion if your candidate loses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because I think that there's a couple ways you could do this. That the last couple years we've seen a party put their passion into doing whatever they can to separate themselves from the president in power. And so that same party who would say that they hated everything that the Democrat Party would try to do to them has a choice now. And so if you're passionate as somebody who right now the way it's looking is you're going to lose this election, if your candidate loses this election, where's your passion going to go?
Right.
Is it going to go towards the things that you dislike about the last 4 years? Are you going to do the same thing that the opposing party did, that you perceived did to you? Or are you going to, and this is what this podcast is about, starting a higher conversation about, what's constructive in society, what's productive in society? How can I take these strong feelings that I feel and use them to contribute?
Yeah.
I think the group that loses right now, it looks like the Democratic candidate is going to be elected unless anything changes dramatically, which I don't know that it will. But
Right.
I think one of the things that we've seen, and it was the other way 4 years ago, I think one of the things that I wish parties would do is instead of going, I'm going to spend the next 4 years trying to dig up dirt on this person so that we can sling better mud at the next election or whatever it is, come up with better ideas. Come up with better candidates.
Yeah.
Come up with a better solution for America. And I feel like we end up being the losers, Americans, because we aren't progressing to come up with everything. That's why I keep saying I think everything is just falls into two categories. And if you think one way or you're passionate, then you're over in this one. It's like, I just feel like there's got to be. Why can't we come together? Why can't we be passionate about America for all people?
Yeah.
And come up with solutions that is going to that I don't know, is going to serve everybody well.
Right.
And it feels like one party wants to serve one group, one party wants to serve the other group, and we're kind of split in our country as to how people fall. And they say, well, I guess I'm in that economic class, I'm in that economic class, so I'm going to vote this way, I'm going to vote this way. And I just, one of the things that I think has transformed some of my passions over the years has honestly been my faith. And I think because of that, some of the things that I was really passionate for, I think most of the time, if we're just honest, we're passionate about the things that we like and the things that are good for us.
Right.
And I think one of the things that my faith has done in me has actually given me a passion for other people. And I don't see that a lot. I think everything feels really selfish right now, even in politics and in the parties. And it doesn't seem like passion is being put for the good of people or somebody else. Because I just feel like that's the message of Jesus, and that's why. So I don't know.
There seems to be a lot of passion right now for policy over people.
Yeah.
And policy matters. The question I always want to ask as a follower of Jesus is, am I more passionate about people or over a policy that I think serves a subculture Christian agenda? And I think you're right. What you asked is the question. For both parties and for us as individuals that are processing, my passion, if I'm going to make the world a better place and if I'm going to be a healthy human, my passion cannot be in slander, and my passion cannot be in manipulating an agenda to serve my needs.
Yeah.
I love what you said. If I'm in the Democratic Party, my passion needs to be, how can I, and I don't want to go too into tricky political things that get us in trouble. Kevin would love that. But to me, what I wish the Democratic Party would do is to pacify the fears of those that think that we're going to cave into the dangerous fringes of what most Americans fear of socialism and things that could corrupt the democracy and the meritocracy we have, while also saying what is a bipartisan way to fight the current threats of COVID and try to reflourish the economy. If I'm the Republican Party, both parties need to bring some youth and diversity and nuanced thought to the table. That's where their passion should be. And the Republican Party, in my opinion, should be focusing their efforts on how can we get some good, classy, dignified leadership that has the values that confirm the conservative party, but that say, okay, we hate socialism, but I love, Erwin, one of the podcasts talk about a Republican that says, here are where we're standing firm on conservative economic values, but here's an actual plan for social issues. Here's an actual plan to further humanity and to actually speak into that void that I think so many people are longing for the Republican Party to speak into.
You know, I wonder, because I feel like there's really common ground for hopefully 70 to 80% of Americans. Like I would say that 70 to 80%, hopefully that's a low estimate, would say that if you lean more on the Democrat Party, I'm more, I have more liberal tendencies and not leftist tendencies. Or if you're on the right side, I'd hope you say I'm more conservative than I am like, I mean, what would you say? Alt-right? I mean, you know, like the extremes, the extreme side of every party. I think that there's...
Is that what happens when passion goes extreme?
Well, so here's my point.
We don't,
my point is that I think that what wins elections doesn't help people.
Yeah, that's true. That's it.
Yeah, so I agree. That's the problem.
You can win an election that, and I think I just want to challenge this, maybe, hopefully, misconception, is that you can win an election by polarizing people.
Yeah, that's what happens.
I want to draw a clear contrast. You know, it was that second debate, the last one. You know, the first one was a train wreck, and the second one, it's like, well, there was really clear contrast between these candidates. Like, it was a good thing. Okay. That you win by creating contrast, and you win elections by saying, nope, here's how different I am from that person. And maybe that's just a sign of the times we're in. But I really feel like, I honestly feel like that if someone would have had the courage to come towards the middle and to, you know, denounce the things that we all hope are denounced. I don't think the majority of Americans want to live in a socialist country, and the majority of Americans are not racist. Okay, so let's denounce the things up front that are harmful to society that we can all agree on. And I feel like those are the things. But then there's this kind of spot in the middle where if you'd had the courage, either of these two, to calm your rhetoric down a little bit and to come towards the middle and say, you know, let's have a conversation about these things. I really think that you would have won a huge majority in the country
this time.
Do you though?
I think that I think so.
I think it's possible in 2024. I think in 2020, one of the reasons we see so much passion is people have become convinced of this, and the reason we saw the voter turnout is people have become convinced of the stakes on either side. Both parties seem to be convinced, or have convinced those that are just diehard on their side that the world's going to end if this side wins or if this side wins.
You know, I think that
Why do you think it is? But I struggle with
think-
this. Why do you think that we always hear statistically there are more people in the middle?
yeah.
And yet is it just because we hear the loudest voices? Because I don't meet many people in the middle. I don't meet much nuanced thought.
I think it's fear mongering. I think fear mongering is effective.
I think the media wins on extremes.
Yeah.
That's right. Fear based.
Well,
that sells. I mean, but that's
think
their
fear
job. It's to get people into extremes. And I think most of the candidates, when they approach their campaigns, it's to push the other person. Even if they would be close to the middle on whatever their policy, I think the campaign plan is to push the other candidate as far to the other side.
But by
as you can.
making your base fear that person.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. By being afraid. I mean, that's what Donald Trump did the whole time. Joe Biden is going to bring a socialist America. Joe Biden was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Donald
And on the other
Trump's
side-
going to bring a racist America.
Well,
I mean,
on the
no,
other
I'm not
side,
going to do that. And
he's
that's
going to be
what-
racist, and
Right.
and 100,000 more people are going to die if
Yes, and
if
so
he gets the second term.
that just it sells, and I just think politics. That's why I don't like the whole political process. I feel like the only way that you could even get into that seat is by having a ton of money, B, by corruption. Like, I mean, it feels like it. I don't know for sure, but it's like you have to kind of comply to whatever party demands if that party is going to raise you up and put them there. So I don't love the current political process. I don't have a better one, though. I don't have a better solution. I don't know if a third party is, because I just feel like whatever it does, it never seems to get traction in the middle.
I used to think the issue.
I would
need a
love
third
it,
party.
though, personally, but I don't know that you can reform any of these parties either.
See, I don't think the issue for 2024 is a third party. I think it's better, nuanced, intelligent candidates for
Here's
the other
what we
two
can all
parties.
agree on is that I am so frustrated at each candidate and each party's failure to articulate a better America.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't hear it through the whole
Yeah,
entire
no.
process.
I don't,
All
like,
I
what
heard
is-
was
what is a
complaining about
better
China and
America
about
look
Russia
like?
Right.
and about
All I heard
taking
about
money
was
and-
the worst America.
Yeah.
That they would create a worse America.
Yeah.
They would create a worse America.
Yeah.
What's the you
But
listen
not
to-
here's how I'm going to create a better America.
Here's the hope. Here's the city on a hill. Here's the all these things that, in my mind, and that's why I say what wins elections doesn't necessarily help people. And I think why I'm thinking about this so much is because we better get to a spot in this country where we start thinking about helping people.
Yeah.
And that the reason we wanted to have a conversation about passion today is because so many people have a passion that, in my opinion, is misplaced.
Yeah.
And misplaced passion will hurt the people around you.
You telling
Yeah.
people what to be passionate about?
Absolutely. I'm telling you that I don't
Well,
think
here's why it
people-
matters.
Yeah.
Because passion's contagious.
Yes.
And people follow
Sure.
passion. That's the
Absolutely.
power, for good or bad. I was reading this book by Donald Miller, Forever Go Blue Like Jazz, and I never thought about this, but he said, think about it. He said, people follow Eminem because he's passionate. And not to knock on Eminem if you like him. I'm not going to get into but content aside, he's a phenomenally gifted rapper. But if you break down most of his lyrics, the main message is that he's a better rapper than other rappers.
Yeah.
But he's so passionate
Yeah.
that people follow him.
Right.
People follow passion.
And that is the danger, and that's why it's really important to know, do I have an informed passion? Where is this passion going to not just lead me, but people are going to follow you? It's kind of like the whole book's called Blue Light Jazz because Donald Miller's thing is, if you ever been around somebody that you weren't passionate about it, but you saw somebody else that was passionate,
Yes.
and you saw them in the flow, and it caught you, and you're like, oh wow, and then somehow their passion rubbed off on you because
Sure.
passion is contagious.
I agree.
Now that never happened with me with jazz. I hate jazz, but it's so important because passion determines where people follow, where people go. I would argue that in our own personal lives, desire is the steering wheel of our lives. That we are never going to go ultimately the place of our greatest intentions, but our greatest desires.
That's good.
And whatever my
That's good.
deepest desires will drive where I go in life.
That's so good.
And where other people go.
I also just think about the dangerous places. I think of Branch Davidian, I think in Waco, Texas. You think about Jim Jones. You think about different
Yeah.
leaders that people followed to their death.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That there is a passion, and you know what? It's what they looked at. Even the first century Christians That they followed this Jesus so passionately that they gave their lives for it. And so passion, I think it needs a purpose, and I think it needs a purpose that's higher than ourselves.
Yeah.
And to me, and I love what you said about desire and intentions, because I think that is the result of a lot of people's lives. Is I have these intentions, they're great intentions, but their desires never lead them there, and they don't control their desires. They don't recognize those things. And
I would actually say one of the reasons people suffer through life so deeply, and I actually think one of the greatest causes of depression, I'm not talking about chemical depression, clinical depression. I'm talking about, I think there's a leader I really look up to that says he thinks one of the antonyms for depression is purpose. That so many people suffer from a lack of purpose. Yeah. Because we actually, I think one of the things as a follower of Jesus that separates Christianity from other religions, if you look at Taoism or Zen Buddhism, part of the overall philosophy is the emptying of desire. The desire intrinsically is a negative thing.
yeah.
As a follower of Jesus, I believe the opposite.
Yeah.
Jesus would often say, zeal has consumed me. And actually, the whole event that I believe split history in two to BC AD, the cross, if you look at it, if you've ever seen the movie, the Mel Gibson movie, it's called The Passion of the Christ. The whole birth and the movement of Jesus was built on a healthy passion that is caught up into something bigger. And I would argue that some people are so angry right now because they've settled for a lesser passion.
Yes.
And that all of us were created to fight for something.
Yeah.
And I think that when we have not found a higher passion that's bigger than ourselves, that has a healthy, big story that serves humanity, I think the person that is, because of a misplaced passion, that people don't have a bigger fight, they will argue and spend all their emotional energy over the boundary lines of a property with a neighbor.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a rightly placed passion,
Yep.
churches that aren't actually consumed with serving humanity will split over the color of carpet or a minor doctrinal issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
Amen.
argue, and this isn't anything against sports,
You seem
but
passionate about
if
this.
your greatest emotional toll goes out every week to cuss out a
Yes.
ref that is against your team
Come
that
on,
you
Russ.
vote for,
Keep talking,
then
Russ.
there is
People are
a
dropping off
missing
right now.
fight. And I would just say, there's times in my life where I'm like, no, I need to pick a bigger fight.
There you go.
I need
Pick
to
a bigger
I need to
fight.
pick a bigger fight.
Yes.
Pick a bigger fight.
Pick a bigger fight.
Because if I
might
don't,
title this podcast "Pick a Bigger
Pick a
Fight."
bigger
That's
fight.
good.
and here's the thing: when you pick a bigger fight, you start attacking ideas instead of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
That's been the problem, I feel like, in this election process, and all of them, is it has felt like even the debates, you can have passion all day long, but when you point that passion at destroying somebody else, the humanity of someone else, the value of another person, rather than attacking the ideas and the solutions or the policies, to me, like, you have reduced, your passion is misplaced.
But see, here's the issue: if you don't have a higher passion, I'm not going to be freed up to be emotionally available to talk about lesser things.
Yeah.
Right.
I would argue one of the advantages for me
Yeah.
as a follower of Jesus is my higher passion
Yeah.
is the kingdom, what I would call the kingdom, eternity,
Yeah.
people. So that frees me up in the outplaying of how that happens on earth
Yeah.
to say, well, let's talk about how this plays out, this fleshes out, this.
And like I said at the beginning, we're unapologetically followers of Jesus. We've given our entire lives for this, and so you guys are leaders in my life. And one of the things that drew me to make the decision to give Jesus my entire life, my entire self, was to see that what you just laid out, was to see that there's something about these people, and God used this church, through a lot of the leaders here. It's like you guys were so passionate about a higher calling, a higher purpose, and
Giving your life to something
giving your life
bigger.
to something greater.
I remember when I left my full-time job in network engineering at the state of Ohio to go into ministry. And I remember people kind of looked at me kind of like, wait, why are you doing that? And it's really hard to explain to somebody, like, why. I was doing an interview with a newspaper reporter when we opened our facility. And I just remember, like, I almost sensed like she was stunned, but I don't think so. But she just asking, like, okay, wait. So what made you want to leave your job in IT to be a pastor? And I feel like it was a really hard question to answer. And I think I had told her something along the lines, well, if you've never felt called to something, you won't understand it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, so a lot of people are like, why would you want to go into ministry? It is definitely not my first choice when it comes. I've done a lot of different things in, just my life. It's not my first choice of what would be easiest, what would be, but it's a passion of mine because I felt called to give my life to something higher that's not of myself, to give my life to see other people who don't have hope and to see other people who are far from God find hope in Jesus the way I did. And so to me, that's why I keep saying I think that one of the things that my faith has done is it has given me a new passion. Otherwise, I think I would be crazed Buckeye fan, addicted to playing golf, all these different things, and that would be my life. That would just be my life. And I just think to myself, in the scope of eternity, okay, that's great. You could be the greatest Buckeye fan there is, and I love the Buckeyes. You could ask my wife. Every Saturday, that's where you're going to find me is going to be watching the game, unless I'm going to a game. Same thing, right?
Oh, man.
Except for my daughter's team that she cheers for is actually going to the state semifinals, and so I'm going to that. But anybody that's been at the last 2 games has seen me. I've got one ear in with my phone on watching the Buckeyes while I'm watching our team, the Bulldogs. And so, but anybody that would just see the passion that we have now, it's not just because you were a little weird in what you were as a kid, so that's why you're passionate. But it's because God has given us a different purpose that has elevated us to a different passion. So now the things that I am most passionate about are the local church. And it's not just this local church, but it's seeing people who I get fueled. What fuels my passion is stories of people whose lives have been impacted and changed by God through work and effort that we're doing. Yeah. Whether it's doing something in the community, Hope Day, you're going to be talking about this weekend, and going out and giving of yourself to it. And I do think one of the things that's unique about the younger generations, the last 2, the millennial generation, and this is that they are more purpose-driven or cause-oriented than previous generations. Yep. And so, I think that's a great thing if it is pointed in a positive direction. If it is pointed at politics, identity politics, it creates divide. And that's where we are as a country right now. And it's how do we, to me, I don't know, how do we get to a place where we have a higher level? And I think the greatest passions that we can have in this life, I absolutely believe the greatest passions we can have in life is when it's not for yourself.
Yes.
But it is to serve somebody else. And it is to create a better world around you for somebody else. That is a passion that is that is a fight that is big enough to have.
Wow.
Big enough to have.
I don't know if I could say it any better. I appreciate that. And I think maybe homework for the people listening is to first understand that God has a purpose and a calling for every single person on this planet.
Yeah.
And if you are frustrated, if you are irritated, if you feel hopeless or anxious about all the things happening in this world, then maybe just consider that it's God trying to call you to something higher and maybe showing you something for the first time. If you're like, well, God never speaks to me. People are crazy that say that. Maybe he might be trying to right now. And so that's how my life was changed, and that's you left a career. I left one night. I felt like I was told to leave what I was doing to go do something that made no sense and just to help people. Yeah, and that's what your story, Russ, is filled with times that you've taken risks and stepped out and not for your own good, but because you're passionate about helping people find real purpose.
Yeah. So yes, yeah. I think that was. When I was in middle school and had just a life-changing encounter with Jesus, sounds weird as a middle schooler. I had so many hobbies and habits. Part of me wondered, is this the newest thing? Yeah. But I can say in a way that's really hard to put words to, that's the one habit that never went away. I've never gotten over. All 20 years later. Is it 20 years? Oh, that feels old. 20 years later, the encounter with Jesus that has freed me up to still pursue other passions. I'm like you. I love getting passionate about other things. And maybe just a practical, image. My mind works in kind of mental picture analogies that helps me. So maybe if if you're feeling this, like, wow, are my passions in the right place? I have some passions that are untamed, is to realize passion's like a fire. And in fact, one more reference from Scripture. Jesus is talking to people at the end in the book of Revelation, and he's talking to churches that he says, hey, you're doing all the right things. You're kind of going through motions, going through the mechanics. But here's what I got against you. It's almost like you could almost see between a spouse. Yeah. Like, it's not just mechanics, it's a relationship. Jesus says, you're doing all the right things, but I wish you were hot or I wish you were cold. But because you're lukewarm, it's almost like if this coffee was lukewarm, it'd make me want to spit it out. And he says, I wish you were hot or cold. And the beautiful thing, here's the practical thing, is fires can be fed or starved. And maybe another piece of practical homework this week, there may be some things in your life that you're so angry and tormented because you keep feeding the fire.
Right. Yeah.
Man, there may be some fires you need to starve this week. Yeah. And there may be some new fires you need to build and feed.
Yeah, that's good.
And is the smoke from that fire producing good things?
Yeah.
And is it an aroma or is it burning down forests in your life? And if it's burning down forests and burning up relationships, and the more you keep reading that or watching that or thinking about that, if it keeps creating angst that's unproductive, then starve that fire for a while.
Yep.
And build a new fire. Sometimes I have to look at things. It's whatever habit. It's almost like a habit of the heart. Whatever I create, I have to feed that.
Yeah.
And
it's good.
That's good stuff, guys.
It's good. Go
Thanks,
Bucks.
Thanks. Right. Go Bucks.
Yeah.
Thanks for a great conversation, guys. I so much of my life, I spend just appreciating what you guys mean to me and how you guys lead people so well and you love people so well. So I love you both. And thank you, everybody who's on here. Got some great questions on Facebook we'll get back with you. But send us an email, podcast@thex.church. Give us a follow, a share, a subscribe, a like, a review. We love you, and we'll see you next week.